Now, it made me think of how many artists are here and they describe their journey as I'm here to create anything, artistic. Do you find that that carries across universally with all the people that you've met, that you've worked with, or
No.
it's not? It's not.
No, and there's a lot of creative people that are probably not going to actualize fully creative lives because their creativity does not lend itself to socially valued activity. For, for example, a creative housewife is probably going to be staying at home, being creative in an environment where that's only going to be noticed by the people that she lives with or he lives with, if it's a house husband. So, but for something that is socially valued, there is a path to the exterior. And that's a sticking point in a lot of ways because awareness doesn't care about what's socially valued. Awareness follows its own innate, authentic impulses. So that's why we have gifted auto mechanics that are never celebrated, and people in other fields that are utterly, amazingly intuitive at what they do, but they get no social notice for it and no public acclaim. And their remuneration is minimal. So we're always juxtaposing what's really true in awareness with what society values, remunerates, engages with, applauds, all of that.
Now, isn't the seeking out of celebration, achievement, or applause, isn't that an ego quality anyway?
Not necessarily.
No, I don't.
I'd have to ask how it felt to that person. There are some people that really do need a very large public canvas to be who they are. And those people engage the public just innately. And so I'd have to ask how that felt. Did that feel like that was driven by some insatiable need for attention, or did that just feel like that's part of the deal?
Right.
How is Gustavo Dudamel going to fulfill his life purpose without a huge audience and a huge public arena? It's who he is. And there may be ego contamination in there, I don't know. But when he's performing, the feeling one gets is that this is a person who's absolutely in their element. So we can't say.
I love how you talk about the quality of giftedness. What led you to realizing your journey as a teacher of awareness, and what carried you to persevere into trying to describe this in a language that then could be taught? What was pulling you along the way? Was it a sense of a vision and a mission, or did it come upon you later in life? I don't know.
It came because as a gifted child growing up in an extremely abusive family, I was so damaged as a young adult that I was completely incapable of stepping into life in any major way, career-wise. And I had tried psychotherapy, and I didn't fit their boxes. I didn't fit the pathologized model that was available in those days. And it still persists even now. And there was no training in gifted personality types. Nobody knew anything about it. So because I was unresponsive in conventional psychotherapy and I couldn't get where I felt I needed to go developmentally, I started working on myself in what became this awareness work. It didn't have that language at the time. But because I couldn't find the answers outside myself, I started just feeling around inside. And I could start to feel when I was in a pattern. But it was so humiliating to me to even acknowledge it at first that I couldn't say anything. But after a while, I began to see the value in letting the other person know that I was in pattern at that moment, and would they please excuse me until I can relax and come back to the situation present again. So I started to work my way out of my own patterns. And then I began to see that other gifted people were psychologically unsuited for conventional psychotherapy as well. And more than that, conventional psychotherapy did not take them beyond their patterning and getting clear of it to what they're really here to achieve in life. And I wanted to develop at that point some work that took people the whole distance. And then I settled into really working with gifted adults. But at first, I didn't think of it that way because I didn't have the language. So that's it. It was really out of my own need to get clear.
So we were just talking about how when you're speaking from your heart or expressing from your heart, that you don't notice other things going on around you. Say, the traffic, or maybe if you're really hot, or innate sense of your body sometimes, because it's almost like awareness carries over it and takes you through because you have something you need to communicate, and that's the highest purpose. So we were just discussing that. How could you relate that to people who maybe aren't in a position where they're around other people communicating on a large sense? Like, say, how would you communicate that to people so we all can relate to it in the same way?
Let's just say somebody who worked with animals, or who was a gardener, or who related to any living thing, that in a sustainable, deeper, open-hearted state, you'd begin to experience that your body just gets taken over and you feel moved toward that plant because you can tell it needs water. You feel moved toward that animal because it's looking to be picked up and cuddled right now. You just let yourself feel moved around, and you become largely unaware of your own physical discomforts or of irritations, let's just say, that normally you'd be really bugged by. It just all goes away, and this larger service starts moving through you. And then your awareness, in that much more expanded place, starts to notice that phenomenon. And you start to see yourself being moved this way. And it's a fascinating process because it brings up the question of, well, what is it then to be a human being? Because if I'm not me anymore, and I'm being moved around like this, and I'm being put in places where I can be in service, then what is a human being?
Wow.
I'm now functioning very differently.
That's a great question because, again, I find that people create a hierarchy around their careers, I'm going back to that because it just came up recently where someone classified, say, the film business as a horrible place to work in, and I thought that was interesting because if you think about if we're all of service and we can recognize our service when we're in it, then we're really all doing the same thing in different environments. So even like a teacher with children, it's the same thing. They're in service to the children.
And more than that, anytime you hear a generalization like that, that is collective ego internalization. The film business is toxic. Working with children is a service and a joy. Well, it's just, none of it is true except for how you experience it moment to moment. You could be on a film project that was totally toxic and be really present in it and just to be standing there going, wow, look at these people. They're all in pattern. It's wild. And then you would not be engaged in it. You wouldn't be reactive to it. You'd just be watching this wild, secondary Fellini movie of the people on the set. And the same thing for, anything benign like charity work or working with children or being a teacher. We don't know what your experience of that's going to be until you tell us if you're the teacher. We need to elicit what that experience actually is so that we don't make generalizations about life experience, so that we see that every person's experience is unique, and that even if we share an experience, like you and I go to the Hollywood Bowl together and we're walking out and you say, wow, wasn't that amazing? I just felt like my heart was going to burst. And I could say, wow, my heart felt like it was going to burst too. And we'd be saying the same words, but we'd be looking for the nuances in one another's feelings that were just slightly different because we'd be interested in those differences in each other.